You really have to understand seduction to really appreciate it for what it is, right? A lot of people don't really understand what seduction is. The easiest way to describe it is when a person is present, like in front of you, versus a person that's absent. They're not in your presence. They're not in the same room with you, right? So if there's a person in front of you, right? If they're physically in front of you, that's called attraction. You see them, right? And you're attracted to them, right? You're attracted to the person in front of you. Now, when that person leaves and you're still thinking about them in your head, that's seduction. Seduction happens when the person is no longer there, right? That's a good rule of thumb. If the person isn't there in front of you and you're thinking about them, that means a seduction has taken place, right? You're still thinking about the person, you're daydreaming, right? And it's not a form of manipulation or like emotional coercion. It's just the person has planted a seed in your psychology, right? They're in your head and you're able to fantasize about them throughout the day, right? So you have to ask yourself, how is it that people are able to do this? How is it that some people are able to seduce other people easier than others, right? The main ingredient, the key ingredient in seduction is imagination, right? A person with a high level of imagination is easier to seduce than a person who's not imaginative, right? A person who has a lot of time in their hands, who has a lot of imagination, is very easy to seduce, right? Because they have the space, the mental space, and the time to think about the fantasy, right? The imagination is pretty much the battery on their back. That's the key is imagination. A person who doesn't have an imagination is not as easily seduced, right? There's other ways, but imagination, that's your bread and butter. That's the key to the castle, right? You have to be able to see a commercial of the future in your head, right? We do this all the time, right? When you meet someone for the first time, you're you're sort of dating, or maybe you're going through a transition where you're not really friends but you're not a couple either, you're sort of like in between. You think about the person all the time, right? You think about it and it becomes like a commercial of what life could be like if you're with this person, right? It requires imagination, right? It requires a vision for the fantasy to be there. Now, um imagination is pretty much like the fertilizer, right? The fertilizer in seduction is imagination. Without that, it's very difficult to do, and you have to you have to cater to the person's needs, right? Whatever that person is lacking, that's what you should be offering. Okay, so um, a lot of people, for the most part, people don't really count their blessings. What people do is they count the things that they don't have, right? That's how seduction happens. You need to understand what it is that the person doesn't have in order for you to give them a glimpse or a modicum of possibility that you can offer that. And then their imagination does all the work, right? It's like their imagination is your employee, right? They're working for you, right? Because they think, oh, I'm going to get whatever it is that I'm craving or repressing in the future through this person, right? But it only works when you understand what their unmet needs are.